Mr. Charles Chong has highlighted the importance of our air hub, Changi Airport. The air connectivity provided by Changi greatly enhances Singapore's proposition as a global business centre. It provides critical support to our manufacturing, logistics, financial and tourism sectors. Our air transport and airport sectors are important contributors to the economy in their own right, contributing some 7% of GDP and 165,000 jobs. But their impact on the whole economy is much more than that. Let me respond to members' questions about the performance of Changi Airport and its prospects. 2012 was a historic year for Changi as it handled 51.2 million passengers, surpassing the 50 million mark for the first time. This was a 10% increase over 2011, exceeding the 5.2% growth of passenger traffic achieved by Asia-Pacific carriers collectively. However, air freight volumes declined 3.2% year-on-year, in line with a global slowdown in the air cargo business. But this was less severe than the 5.5% decline in air cargo traffic experienced by airlines in the Asia-Pacific. A new Singapore-based low-cost medium to long-haul carrier, Scoot, commenced services in June. This new addition to the SIA family reflects changes in the aviation landscape where increasingly low-cost carriers are driving air traffic growth in regions like Europe and Asia. LCCs are also increasing the connectivity of air hubs by establishing links with secondary cities that might not be commercially viable for full-service carriers to operate to. Indeed, LCCs accounted for about 28% of total passengers handled at Changi in 2012. Of the 155 direct city links at Changi, 10 are operated solely by LCCs. In addition, Singapore concluded 8 new air services agreements, or ASAs, and expanded 5 existing ones in 2012, bringing our total number of ASAs to over 120. Of note is the expanded ASA with Japan, which will enable Singapore carriers to mount more services to Tokyo's Haneda Airport, which business travelers favor for its proximity to the city, and they can do so from 2014 onwards. We will continue to pursue air services liberalization ahead of demand to give our carriers the flexibility to grow or launch new connections once opportunities arise. This will help Changi to build on its superior connectivity. Also in September, the budget terminal closed to make way for the new Terminal 4. The construction of the new terminal will commence later this year and will be completed in 2017. As Mr. Charles Chong has noted, airlines previously based at the budget terminal had to move to Terminal 2 during the construction of Terminal 4. The move has benefited both airlines and passengers. Although passengers now have to pay $10 more in passenger charges, they have access to better facilities such as covered aero bridges, as well as a wider range of retail shops and F&B options. Terminal 2 is also better suited to support airlines' transfer operations. For example, the relocation has enabled Tiger Airways to launch new transfer products and services. Both Dr. Lily Neo and Mr. Charles Chong asked for more details of the design features of the new Terminal 4. I'm pleased to share with members that Terminal 4 will offer a user experience similar to those at the other terminals, with aero bridges, airside passenger and baggage transfer to other terminals, and attractive commercial offerings. Its design will also facilitate quick flight turnaround in line with the operating models of LCCs. I will say a little bit more about the experiments that we're going to do at Terminal 4 as well. One important measure of performance at Changi Airport is on-time departure. On-time departure performance deteriorated at the end of 2011 due to a higher incidence of bad weather, a surge in air traffic as well. However, with coordinated action taken by the Civil Aviation Authority of Singapore, the Changi Airport Group, airlines and other airport stakeholders, departure delays have been sharply reduced and are now back to pre-2011 levels. This was despite aircraft movements increasing by nearly 8% in 2012. All in all, Singapore's aviation sector did well in 2012. For 2013, we project passenger traffic growth to moderate to 5%, in line with the subdued global economic conditions. In the longer term, we expect traffic to grow steadily, driven by the strong growth of the Asia-Pacific, which will spur increased travel to, from, and within the region, through existing and new city links at Changi. During MOT's Committee of Supply debate last year, I announced that I would chair a multi-agency Changi 2036 steering committee to develop a holistic long-term plan for the expansion of Changi Airport. This would include the civilian use of Changi's third runway, additional passenger terminal capacity, and related infrastructure and transport links to support Changi's future growth. The committee has held extensive discussions with various stakeholders and arrived at several key conclusions regarding runway capacity, terminal capacity, and raising productivity further. Let me share our conclusions with members. First, a study by NATS, the air navigation service provider for London's Heathrow Airport, has concluded that by implementing various measures, Changi Airport's existing 2 runways can accommodate about 430,000 aircraft movements per year, which is 1/3 more than the record number of 324,000 movements last year. By implementing runway optimization and other measures, such as Mr. Cedric Fu's suggestion of moving some aircraft to Seletar Airport, we expect the increased capacity of our 2 runways to be sufficient to cater to Changi Airport's growth until around the end of this decade. Thereafter, a 3rd runway will be needed for Changi to continue to grow. Exactly how soon we will need a 3rd runway at Changi for civilian use depends on various factors, including air traffic growth and the aircraft mix operating at the airport. For example, airlines may upgauge narrow-body aircraft to wide-body aircraft to carry more passengers rather than applying for new departure and landing slots. This will allow Changi to support more passenger traffic with the same runway capacity. Nonetheless, the committee has decided that Changi's runway 3, currently used by the RSAF, should be readied for civilian use as early as possible, and we estimate this to be before the end of this decade. Even as MOT and CAAS develop the detailed plans for this, preparatory works have already started. The works are complex and will take time. We will announce the detailed timelines for the works and the implementation of a 3-runway system at Changi Airport in the second half of the year. As for passenger terminals, I updated this House at last year's Committee of Supply that Changi Airport's total passenger capacity will increase from 73 million passengers per annum, or MPPA, to 85 MPPA by 2018, with the addition of the new Terminal 4 and an expanded Terminal 1. As members know, passenger traffic at Changi rebounded strongly after the 2009 global financial crisis and has remained high. However, we should be reminded that in the last decade, even starting with a lower base, passenger traffic at Changi saw a compounded annual growth rate of just 3.9%. So, whilst it has grown very rapidly in the last 2 to 3 years, if we take the whole of the last decade together, in fact, the compounded annual growth rate was just 3.9%. We are now at a much higher base than at the beginning of the last decade. Looking ahead, we expect the compounded annual growth rate of passenger traffic at Changi to be around 5% till the end of this decade and moderate to 3 to 4% in the next decade. This is neither a conservative or aggressive estimate, as growth in Singapore is moderating even as emerging regional economies pick up pace. At these growth rates, we expect to need additional terminal capacity by the mid-2020s. To position Changi for the longer term, we should plan for expansion of its passenger terminal capacity. It takes many years to get the terminal up because of all the services that have to be linked between the different terminals. Other airports are thinking along similar lines. As I shared last year, and Mr. Charles Chong also pointed out, many air hubs elsewhere are planning substantial capacity increases. For example, Dubai Airport is rapidly adding additional capacity and recently opened the world's first Airbus A380-only concourse with 20 contact stands that can handle 15 million passengers per year. So one concourse handling nothing but A380s. By providing ample capacity, Dubai will allow its home carrier Emirates and other airlines to expand their networks. This extensive connectivity is a key reason behind Australian carrier Qantas's decision to tie up with Emirates and reroute its Europe-bound flights via Dubai instead of Singapore from March this year. While Dubai has taken full advantage of its geographical position to grow its air links and is now connected to many more cities than Changi, we continue to have an edge in connectivity within the region, including to countries like China, India, and Indonesia. Changi Airport must take the competition seriously and work hard to retain superior air connectivity. We should therefore make plans to expand Changi Airport's capacity to build on an advantage that has taken years to acquire. We need room to grow our connectivity with many more emerging cities. This will also support airlines' growth plans and anchor them here. Over the past year, the Changi 2036 Steering Committee has been working on a concept plan for the 1,080-hectare site at Changi East, which lies between the current runway 2 and runway 3. Based on studies done, there is sufficient land to develop a mega passenger terminal, as well as an air freight center, an air logistics center, and MRO hub on the site. MRO referring to maintenance, repair, and overhaul. With these new facilities, new roads and public transport links will also be needed to serve the airport. Existing roads may also have to be diverted. MOT, CAS, and LTA will study these issues further and engage the aviation community on the concept plan in the months ahead. We aim to finalize the concept plan by the end of this year. In addition to Changi Airport, we are also developing Seletar Airport and Seletar Aerospace Park, or SAP, as a hub for business and general aviation and aerospace activities. Since its launch in 2006, SAP has attracted numerous aerospace companies, including global names such as Rolls-Royce, Pratt & Whitney, and Eurocopter. Mr. Charles Chong asked if there is still capacity to grow the aerospace industry at Seletar. As he has highlighted, the development of the 30-hectare Phase 3A of SAP commenced last year and is slated for completion in 2014. In addition, Phase 3B, with an additional 30 hectares of space, will be developed in due course to cater to the industry's growth. However, as Mr. Charles Chong also highlighted, the success of Seletar Airport and SAP requires more than just infrastructural expansion. Accessibility is indeed an important factor. Today, the area is served by bus service 103, which connects commuters to Serangoon Bus Interchange and Serangoon MRT Station. Commuters travelling to SAP from towns such as Tampines, Bedok, Yishun, Woodlands, and Sengkang can also make same-stop transfers to 103, to Service 103 at the entrance to SAP. In addition, JTC has also been operating shuttle bus services between SAP and the nearby MRT stations, as well as a lunchtime bus service within the SAP itself. We will continue to monitor the pace of development in the area and will add capacity should demand warrant it. With our strong fundamentals of economic and political stability, a quality workforce, respect for intellectual property, and good business connectivity, I'm confident that SAP is in a good position to ride the growth of the aerospace industry in the region and continue to attract new investments. Madam, the plan to expand the airports at Changi and Seletar also needs to take into account the changing manpower landscape in Singapore. Even though value added per worker in the sector is already much higher than the services sector in general, we should aim to operate our airports in more efficient ways. The new Terminal 4 offers us an opportunity to innovate and explore ways to do more with less. For example, CAG is exploring having self-service kiosks and automated check-in and immigration clearance facilities in the new Terminal 4. Passengers will be able to obtain their boarding passes easily without having to wait in line for service staff to process their check-in. Those with check-in luggage can deposit their bags at automated baggage drop facilities. At departure immigration, passengers can scan their boarding passes, passports, and thumbprints for automated verification. At the boarding gates, passengers will proceed to their aircraft via automated counters. Such practices are also being adopted in other airports, such as in Munich and Sydney. They allow for faster and more efficient check-in and immigration clearance while reducing the manpower required. Terminal 4 will also feature productivity innovations that will make it easier for airport staff to do their work. For example, mechanical baggage lifters will be installed to assist baggage workers in lifting check-in bags so that they no longer need to move the bags manually. This will greatly reduce the physical strain on baggage workers and open such jobs to more seniors. Such innovations are timely as they allow for smaller scale experimentation before being adopted on a larger scale at the new terminal at Changi East. In addition, CAS is also working with its partners to identify other ways to increase the productivity of the airport and upgrade jobs. An airport productivity steering committee led by CAS and comprising stakeholders such as CAG, airlines, airport service providers, and other government agencies has been established to drive this effort in a more holistic manner. This will be an important effort to ensure that our airport expansion plans raise productivity for the sector to even higher levels. In summary, let me assure members of this House that the government is committed to ensuring the continued competitiveness of Singapore as an air hub in terms of both the hardware and software that have made our airport a source of pride for all Singaporeans, to borrow the words of Mr. Charles Chong. With our ongoing efforts and plans, I'm confident that Singapore and Changi Airport will be well equipped to capitalize on the strong growth of air travel in the Asia-Pacific and maintain our leading hub position. Madam Chairman, let me now turn to the maritime sector. I thank Mr. Teo Siong Seng and Ms. Mary Liu for their comments and suggestions for this key pillar of our economy. Before I address their specific points, let me first update members on the performance of the Singapore maritime sector in 2012. 2012 was not smooth sailing for the global maritime industry. Shipping companies were affected by weak demand, overcapacity of ships, high fuel prices, and increasing environmental concerns, which Mr. Teo highlighted earlier. As a transshipment hub at the crossroads of major trade routes, our port also felt the impact of these problems. But nonetheless, we registered good growth in 2012. container throughput grew over 5% to reach 31.6 million 20-foot equivalent units, or TEUs, the first time that our port crossed the 30 million TEU mark. We maintain our global lead in vessel arrival tonnage, which increased by 6% to reach a record high of 2.25 billion gross tons. We also remained the world's top bunkering port, even though bunker sales fell slightly by 1% to 42.7 million tons. Last year, we attracted several new shipping companies and maritime service providers, while existing maritime players continued to grow their presence here. Today, there are about 130 international shipping groups and more than 5,000 companies in Singapore offering a full spectrum of maritime-related services. Our efforts to develop in Singapore a leading international maritime centre, or IMC, are bearing fruit. For example, in the area of maritime arbitration, BIMCO, which is one of the world's largest shipping associations, recently included Singapore as an arbitration venue in its shipping contract forms, alongside London and New York. It's a great honor to have Singapore being named as an arbitration venue. It's something that we've worked hard to achieve. Now, these positive developments in the face of global challenges reflect the strong fundamentals of our maritime cluster. So, while we expect 2013 to be another difficult year for the global shipping industry, we are also cautiously optimistic that our maritime cluster here will continue to grow. To maintain Singapore's competitiveness as a global hub port and IMC, we will continue with 3 key strategies. First, to invest in infrastructure ahead of demand. Second, to sharpen our maritime policies and schemes to meet changing business needs. And third, to grow a core of local maritime talent. Let me start with infrastructure. Despite the difficult short-term outlook, we take a long-term view of our port and will continue to grow port capacity ahead of demand. To this end, the expansion of Pasir Panjang Terminal is on track, and the first new set of berths will be ready in 2014. When this expansion is completed, our port capacity will increase by 50% to 50 million TEUs per annum. We are not stopping there. In the long term, we will consolidate our container port activities at Tuas with a handling capacity of up to 65 million TEUs per annum. Consolidation will increase efficiency through greater economies of scale and reduce costs through the elimination of inter-terminal haulage. A new port at Tuas will also allow us to introduce new technology and processes to meet future challenges, in particular to improve manpower productivity. We expect the first berths at Tuas Port to be operational in about 10 years. With the consolidation, existing port land will be freed up for exciting redevelopment opportunities. Our second strategy is to continually sharpen our maritime policies and schemes to ensure that they remain relevant to maritime companies, a matter that Mr. Teo also raised. As announced in Budget 2013, we will provide ship owners and operators with greater tax certainty by extending the maximum tenure of the approved International Shipping Enterprise AIS award under our Maritime Sector Initiative scheme from 30 to 40 years. For our maritime sector to remain competitive, we must strive for productivity-driven growth. A key enabler of this is to promote maritime R&D to support businesses as they innovate and develop new capabilities. For instance, MPA uses its Maritime Innovation and Technology Fund to co-fund R&D efforts by our port operators in areas such as automated port systems and port optimization techniques. The Singapore Maritime Institute has also launched the Next Generation Container Port Challenge to spark new ideas that can achieve a quantum leap in port performance. I'm glad that Mr. Teo and others in the shipping community support this important drive towards higher productivity. We will continue to work with the industry to sharpen the competitiveness of our maritime sector, including exploring Mr. Teo's suggestion for more free trade agreements with emerging markets. Our third and most important strategy is to grow and maintain a core of local maritime talent, a subject which Ms. Mary Liu brought up. We are making steady progress in grooming a core group of Singaporeans to take up seafaring and shore-based careers in the maritime industry. Today, of the more than 170,000 people employed in the maritime sector, about 76,000 are locals, compared to about 56,000 locals some 10 years ago. Over this period, we have seen a larger core of Singaporeans in maritime activities such as port operations, ship management, and ship chartering. So, many more locals are working in maritime industries, very often in PMET jobs. This has been achieved through the close partnership that MPA has forged with the industry, unions, and educational institutions. I agree with Ms. Mary Liu that we must continue to make maritime careers attractive to Singaporeans. Indeed, MPA works closely with partners to raise awareness of the wide range of maritime careers through outreach activities such as the Maritime One platform. To date, over 100 Maritime One scholarships have been awarded to aspiring seafarers and other maritime professionals. Most recently, in September 2012, MPA launched the Singapore Maritime Gallery to showcase our maritime heritage and career opportunities that Maritime Singapore has to offer. I'm told that even though it's quite new, quite a lot of school groups have already made their way to the Maritime Gallery. I think it bodes well that people, our youths, start learning about our maritime history and also the opportunities in this sector from an early age. We are also working actively to broaden the range of maritime training opportunities. There are now specialized courses at NITEC, diploma, and degree levels to prepare our students for exciting and fulfilling careers in the maritime sector. For aspiring seafarers, the Singapore Maritime Academy offers programs that prepare students for their diplomas and their first professional seagoing qualifications. Ms. Mary Liu raised the need for our seafaring cadets to have sufficient training opportunities. And I would like to assure her that our cadets are indeed able to get access to opportunities for operational experience, which they need for their qualification. And MPA will continue to work with SMA and the shipping groups to ensure that this remains the case. As Ms. Liu mentioned, we are also growing our core of local seafarers for our harbourcraft sector. To this end, MPA and its partner agencies have introduced place and train programs for deck officers and marine engineer officers who work on ships plying in and around Singapore. Apart from co-funding their course fees, MPA has since October 2012 topped up the monthly allowances for these cadets, leading to at least a doubling of their allowances depending on their training phase. I'm very pleased that MPA took up the suggestion from the last COS debate and worked expeditiously on this. I think within 3 months of the last COS, we were able to tie up the details and make an announcement on the increased allowances. Now, response to these programs has been encouraging, and I look forward to the graduation of the first batch of deck officers later this year. In addition, I would like to assure Ms. Liu that we welcome former Singaporean seafarers like Mr. Omar to rejoin the maritime sector, and we will look into how we can help them revalidate their skills. I think Ms. Liu talked about supporting them financially, so we will take a close look at that. We are also doing more to help our maritime professionals upgrade their knowledge and skills to meet the evolving needs of the industry. Mr. Teo had talked about how important international exposure is, and we agree, and we will make available all the supports that we can to enable more of our local professionals to upgrade themselves in that way. Over the past year, MPA's $50 million Maritime Cluster Fund for Manpower Development has provided funding support to over 4,000 maritime professionals for their training and development. This is almost twice as many as the 2,200 beneficiaries in 2011. To further encourage manpower development, MPA has since October 2012 increased the co-funding support under the MCF from 50% to 70%. MPA and its industry partners have also introduced more continuing education and training opportunities, such as the professional development course in maritime logistics offered by the Chartered Institute of Logistics and Transport. As members can see, there is no lack of effort to grow a core of local maritime talent. And I support Ms. Liu's call for more Singaporeans to take up opportunities in this sector. And I can assure her that if she can help us find 500 cadets, we will do everything on our part to take everyone in. But at the same time, I'd like to reassure Mr. Teo that we continue to keep Singapore open and employer-friendly as long as the skills and expertise of the foreign professionals here complement those of our local workforce. As to the current dependency ratio, which Ms. Liu talked about, I'm hearing the very opposite from Mr. Teo, who voiced concerns earlier over the tightening foreign worker policies. This illustrates how fine a balance we have to strike to consider the pressures for business and at the same time keeping opportunities open to our locals. But I'm confident that by working together, we will be able to strike the right balance. And if need be, we will review and take a closer look at the dependency ratio. Madam Chairman, the maritime sector not only provides critical connectivity for our economy, it also contributes directly to our growth. Building on our strong maritime foundation, the Singapore government will continue to work with our tripartite partners in developing new infrastructure, capabilities and talent so as to ensure the continuing success of Maritime Singapore. Thank you.